Yesterday, the sports minister, he's also the sports arts and culture minister, but we're talking sport now, Gayton McKenzie announced the establishment of a steering committee which is going to receive bids from cities that want to host a Formula One Grand Prix if and when the FIA allocates one to Africa. And the bid committee will then assess all of those bids and then choose one and present it to Cabinet. Relatively tight deadline of just over 2 months, and then we'll take it from there. The Minister is now with us via Zoom. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for your time.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me, John.
Gayton, you must be reasonably convinced that the FIA is serious in wanting to put a Grand Prix on the only continent which, at the moment, doesn't host a Grand Prix.
No, I'm more than convinced. I don't think there'll be a problem. We'll definitely get one. I think the FIA needs have a Grand Prix as much as we want a Grand Prix. I mean, it just doesn't look good. I mean, what reason would they have not to have a Grand Prix on the African continent? F1, I mean, it needs to be here. It's everywhere, but it's not in South Africa. It's not in Africa. You look at Italy. Italy's got two. One country has two, but the whole continent has nothing. It's not right.
I mean, they might have felt that South Africa wasn't, or Africa wasn't in a position to do all of the complexities that are involved in hosting a Grand Prix. But the sense is that they really do want to spread it across the entire globe. One thing that really pleased me about reading through the nuts and bolts of your announcement yesterday was the limited government involvement in the funding of it, because I think there's a debate about the extent to which hosting multi-sport events or single sport events, global ones, whether that's good or bad for the general economy. But you've made it quite clear that most of the funding is going to come from the private sector. And you also said that the private sector is knocking at your door every day saying, please get us a Formula One race that we can sponsor.
Yeah, we must also be honest, the fact that we don't have an F1 Grand Prix race in South Africa, it's not only on the fault of the FIA or the Liberty Group. It's also our fault as South Africans. There was a lot of bickering. There was a lot of showmanship. There was a lot of political interference. It was just a lot of mess happening. And we cannot just blame the F1 for the lack of having one yet here in South Africa, but we've also have a role to play. We've been to the altar twice with F1, never got married. But this time, as I said, we've got the ring, we've got the dress, we've got the lobola ready. We're ready now to get married. And as you say, there's a lot of interest. I mean, most of these companies is already sponsoring F1 in other continents, are resident in our country also. And those companies will definitely put their hands in their pocket. We've had offers already. Like, for instance, I've got an offer on my table for people that want to take over the hospitality, and they were willing to put down, I think, something like 400 million. And I said, no, the bid steering committee will decide all those factors. But there's a big interest and a big appetite. Red Bull, for instance, and all these other companies, I can mention them, has already started adverts for F1. So, yeah, I don't foresee government taking out a lot of money or spend public money much on the F1.
To pick up on your marriage metaphor, I suppose a Formula One race is the bride, and you are leaving the choice of the groom entirely up to the steering committee that you announced yesterday. Government is going to allow the steering committee to do its work and then present, and I presume they'll have to justify their choice, but if they do so, you will allow the company they choose to be the groom in this wedding.
I think first I must be honest and bold enough to say they know more than me when it comes to what is required from country, from what the F1 requires. We mustn't, as politicians, we must surround ourselves with the best brains. You don't get better people for the task than the people that we've assembled. So once you assemble great people, you should have the common sense to let them do their work. We are totally in their hands. They know what to look for. They understand. I mean, they understand legally what what is needed, the compliance and the funding models and all of that. Things that I must confess on this particular issue, they know more than me. And that's why we gave them the task, and they'll give us a name, and that name is the name that we'll go with. No doubt.
Yeah, I don't know whether Cape Town is going to try and get a street circuit, put that in as a bid. I mean, I think we were pretty good at hosting the Formula E race in the streets of Cape Town, Greenpoint, Sea Point, that area. I don't know whether that's one of the bids that is going to be put in front of the steering committee. And kind of as a Cape Townian, I hope that would, because I think it would be good for the city. But Kyalami seems the most obvious, as you said yesterday. It has a history of Formula One. It has a race there. It has a racing track. They are already doing the upgrades that would make that racing track FIA compliant. So, I say we'll put in a pretty good bid, I'm sure of that. But then we're not alone. And I know yesterday you said you didn't want South Africa and Rwanda. Paul Kagame, the president, has said Rwanda wants to host the Formula One race when it's allocated to Africa. And you said we must work together, we mustn't compete. But essentially it is a competition. It is going to be between Rwanda and South Africa.
Well, I think essentially it's going to be a competition, but it shouldn't be a competition. It shouldn't be a competition because Europe has 7 races. The Middle East got 4 races. Why should Africa fight for one between each other? It shouldn't be, but let's say it does. I honestly, and I say this with all humility, I don't think that South Africa, I don't think that this is competition for us. South Africa's GDP is 30 times the GDP of Rwanda. South Africa has a track, Rwanda doesn't have a track. South Africa has a track record of hosting F1 previously. Rwanda doesn't have a track record of hosting the F1 previously. South Africa has the biggest contingent of motorsport enthusiasts on the continent. Rwanda's one doesn't even form 5% of our motorsport enthusiasts. And lastly, South Africa has the biggest traveling contingent of people traveling outside South Africa to go and watch F1, and more than 20, 30 times the people that leave Rwanda. And we, all those factors I've mentioned now, you look at plane capacity, all those things. South Africa, Rwanda's truly not competition for us. We should help them so that they can also host an F1. But for me, it's a no-brainer. We can give compelling reasons as to why it should come to us. So we are saying, please, Rwanda should get one. We should get one. We should get one first.
Yeah, the only thing that I can think of that might incline them towards Rwanda, and I don't think we're going to get 2 first up. We might get one and have one for a couple of years, and then they go, you know what, Africa's doing a really good job of this. Let's give another one to Africa. That's possible, I suppose. Is that perhaps Rwanda has a reputation for being slightly less messy than South Africa. South Africa is a democracy, of that there is no doubt. We have a track record of hosting Cricket World Cups. We didn't maximize on the potential offered us by hosting the 2010 FIFA World Cup, but we did a pretty good job of hosting that massive global tournament. So the only thing that I could think of that might stand in Rwanda's favor is the fact that they are perhaps reputationally seen as a little more ordered and stable than South Africa might be in the eyes of some.
No, I disagree with you strongly.
Okay.
Firstly, South Africa has hosted the best World Cup ever hosted, a soccer World Cup. There's never been a soccer World Cup that has been more successful than the one of South Africa. We are still reaping the rewards or the fruits from that World Cup. We reference and mention that World Cup wherever we go to. We just had a visit from the mayor of Atlanta and his whole contingent to come and learn from us how to host a successful World Cup, because they next up in 2026. Our country was showcased. There were people that came for the first time, that bought properties, things that you don't really read in the media about. People that have been back multiple times. Secondly, the South Africa and Rwanda, I mean, you need to understand, Rwanda's never had a big event. What major event has Rwanda hosted? We've hosted a Cricket World Cup. the Rugby World Cup, the Soccer World Cup. I mean, like we've got major events that we've hosted, and F1's new rule of saying that they want countries to sign for 10 years. We must be honest. I don't think people will go 10 for 10 straight years. Rwanda will never pull the crowd that South Africa is pulling. And the most important thing is that Rwanda will be difficult for them to have a street race because it's a hilly country. South Africa, we can have a street race. We have a track. They still want to build a track. Now, I do not think that the F1 can truly not give South Africa first. I just can't see it, honestly. We've got everything going for us. We've got a government of national unity that supports us. We've got the motorsport people. You look at Kalami, for instance, and you look at, we can have street races we can have a race in Kalami. We can have a street race at Nasrec. We can have a street race in Cape Town. I mean, the possibilities are just endless. And if you pull, I was at the F1 in Qatar, and they pulled 42,000 people. And you look at Silverstone pulled 400,000 people in the UK. And I think that's the number South Africa is going to pull in and outside the track, if we're going to have it at Kalami.
I think over the 3 days of the Zandvoort Grand Prix, hosting the world champion was over 100,000 people. So yeah, it is. Thank you. We will talk again, I hope, once the steering committee has made its presentation to Cabinet and Cabinet has decided, and then I hope that we'll be able to talk to you again about progress.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure speaking to John. Thank you.
Gayton McKenzie, Sports Minister. I don't know. What do you think, folks? Oh, I just see this has just come in from Diane. We have just been to the Qatar Grand Prix, and there is not a chance our transport infrastructure could cope. Buses, trains, underground was absolutely top class. Look, we coped with the FIFA World Cup. Our transport infrastructure coped with a much, much bigger event, a month-long event. We managed to get people between cities and between places where they were staying and stadia. We did that all right. So, yeah, I'm sure that Qatar's transport infrastructure is more effective, more functional than ours, but I'm not convinced that we couldn't get people from where they're staying around Johannesburg, if Kyalami hosts it, to the track and back.